it doesn't seem like it's been a year, almost, has it?
No.
Since we lost George Michael, He's one of those people who passed too young, It's only been 8 years since we lost Michael Jackson, but, last year was just an apocalypse of icons, passing away.
Yeah.
My
Way
friend
too many last year.
my friend Henry made that point. People die every year, musicians, members of bands. That's happened this year, but big icons. We had Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. You had David Bowie. You had Prince, and then Christmas Day, and I was sick that day. George Michael, right on Christmas Day. So, but even still, I have a lot of good memories. But we still had some issues with how to present this particular video, even as recently.
Yeah, we were trying to decide whether we should do them as separate for Andrew or George Michael and Wham separately, or not, but I chose to go ahead and do them all together.
And Scott addressed Andrew Wrigley over here. He had a solo album in the late 80s or early 90s called Son of Albert, which had some 12-inchers, but we don't have any of that stuff, so we decided to put Wham and George Michael material together for this. And there's going to be some incomplete things on both, but since George Michael has such a small repertoire of music in the vinyl era, and a lot of recording contract issues and record label problems prevented him from being as prolific as he deserved to be, and I think he deserved to be as a solo artist. This is what we've got. So we're going to start out with a Wham featuring George Michael. He's the only one on here, not Andrew Wrigley. Careless Whisper. And there's an interesting history I recently learned of this song, too. Do you remember where you got this?
This we got over to
the Bull Moose. If I recall, and I don't know if it's true or not, he wrote this song in the very late 70s and credited Andrew Wrigley for it, so he would always have an income.
He would have income from it, yes.
So
did hear that.
George Michael, as an artist, is known for his generosity to friends, so that was something about it. He made sure Andrew Wrigley, I want to make sure I pronounce his name right, but it's a George Michael song through and through, for Columbia label. This has the instrumental. I believe this has an extended mix. I believe this is a 12-inch, similar to the 45 version, which had the instrumental on the back, too. My mother and father had that in their collection, the 45 version.
The remix version is 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
But again, and I don't know if the instrumental is the extended version or what.
And the instrumental is 5 minutes or 4 minutes and 52
seconds. So it's basically the one on the 45, probably. Everything She Wants. Now, this is also Wham. Now, this is just credited to Wham. This has the same cover to the 45, which my parents also have, but this is a very different thing. It's got remixes on it, and I don't know if this has an instrumental on it.
I prefer this version of the song to the album version. This is the version that they use in the music video, and there's a horn section that's featured in this that's not in the album release.
Well, because it's interesting. If I understand it, this is one of those songs where George Michael played almost everything on it, so they added a horn section. Was kind of an interesting little idea. And it's one of my favorite Wham songs, by the way, in general, just in terms of what they did with the Columbia label. This is the reason I wanted to hold out. This is my favorite Wham album, and this has got a hype sticker on it. We found this at Bull Moose in Brunswick, I should say. Fantastic. Now, this had songs that were really big in England in 1982, on Top of the Pops. Bad Boys, Young Guns. Basically, Wham were kind of a leather-clad hip-hop duo at that point. One of my favorites on here is Club Tropicana, and how it segues into Nothing Looks the Same in the Light. It shows you what a great composer George Michael actually was. And Young Guns, of course, and Bad Boys is amazing. It's a different side of them, more funky, more disco-oriented. And it's got the Intervision imprint on the top of it. And so this is their debut from 1983. You notice it has the artwork from the next album you're going to see on it, because I think this hit over here after this, Make It Big. Another Greg album. This is their big breakthrough. Wake Me Up Before You Go, Everything She Wants, Freedom, the first version of Freedom, and Careless Whisper. This was their major thing. I remember first seeing this on Friday Night Videos. I don't know if you remember when you first heard of Wham or saw them or what.
I'm pretty sure it was on MTV.
Yeah, and they had that video for Wake Me Up Before You Go. We saw on Watch Mojo. It's considered one of the worst music videos of the 80s, but Hey, what is wrong with a video where a guy's wearing a shirt saying "Choose Life"? Huh? I mean, AIDS and everything happening, and gay people feeling very depressed. George Michael's in the closet, but he's telling people to choose life. I'm not going to fault that one. And it's a great video. Them having fun. I love it. Now, I have a copy of this.
Yes, you do.
We had 2 of these, and you had a little debate over whether, because it was one of the only picture discs I have. Same album, but it's got Wham on the back and on the front. That's a picture disc. Where did you? I think you got one of these with me and one of them.
This one we got at Record Connection in Waterville.
Yep, and the other one was, I think, your original.
Was my original that I didn't remember that I had.
Well, and here is what ended up being the last Wham album, Music from the Edge of Heaven. There's actually a British version with a totally different name, isn't there?
Yes.
And it has some different cuts on it.
It has different cuts as well.
I think there's some remixes or something. But this album has some singles that were coming out around then, like Last Christmas, which is one of my favorite Christmas songs. One of my favorites of the 80s. I know what yours is, but it's one of my favorites of that time. This also...
I actually remember having an extra picture of this, and I used to work at a place in Machias where we could make T-shirts. So I took and cut this picture here, and actually made that into a T-shirt.
Yeah, I found that an interesting picture. It definitely looks like a group trying to break up. One's facing the other way. Both look like something's coming to an end. It's an odd picture of them. A different corner, that was kind of downbeat of a song, but I wonder if it's kind of about a lot of this kind of album has a lot to do with them kind of breaking up. I think The Edge of Heaven was a hit on here, yeah. And there's another song on here. They did Wham Ramp 86, but Where Did Your Heart Go? That was actually on the first album by Was Not Was. And I think that became a hit for them. And there's also an I'm Your Man on it too, which was a big hit for them. And of course, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, the 12-inch. We have that too, but it didn't have a picture sleeve, 45. So some remixes on it.
Yes. It would have the instrumental version, and I believe it's just the standard album version that's on there. I bought it because it had to be added to my collection.
Yeah, but it's a great thing to have, Even though I have a lot of this stuff myself now, in different ways. These are still great things to have.
If I see it and I don't have it in my collection, I will buy it.
Yep. You heard about that in the Frankie video we did. That was kind of the issue we dealt with them. Now, George Michael is on his own, and I remember this very well, seeing them playing that organ version of Freedom and going up, and he starts playing, and he's doing Faith, and it's like, this is a different George Michael. All of a sudden, he's doing rockabilly. He's wearing a little beard. He's got jeans and a leather jacket. He's a different guy.
Yes.
He's a totally different guy, and it still sounds like him. And I Want Your Sex, but this is Faith. This is the Faith 12-inch. I think the first song that came out for the... Was it this, or I Want Your Sex that came out first? I think I Want Your Sex came out first.
I'm pretty sure it was I Want Your Sex because it caused such a ruckus.
Yep. Again, different George Michael. He's on his own and doing his own thing, and very much an adult George Michael at this point. So this has the instrumental and a song called Hand to Mouth on the B-side, which I believe is from the Faith album.
Yes.
Speaking of the Faith album, one of your birthday presents this year, wasn't it?
This was one of my birthday presents this year.
I got it from Dr. Records. He hadn't priced it, but I got it again because I begged him for it. He's good about that. And he has that come in occasionally, but this is the album that it had I Want Your Sex. I believe that started it out. Great double part song because actually Faith started it out, and then Father Figure was a big one. Now that I look at it, that was kind of a fetish send-up, but I still think it was a cool song. And, of course, this also had a song called Monkey, which is one of my favorites, about addiction. Looking at it now, it's kind of eerie, considering what happened to George Michael, but, obviously he was noticing that, and he probably knew other people who were going through it. So Monkey, and it's kind of an encouraging, upbeat song to kind of help you get monkeys off your back. So this is his kind of big thing. I don't know if George Michael ever quite got to this level as a solo artist quite again. This was.
No, I think this was his.
This was when he just burst right out, and it's a good thing to come out on that level. So it's got the inside, that writing on the bottom. There's George as he appeared at that time. Standard Columbia label. This is one of those albums. It did some stuff on vinyl, but I always think of this as a CD thing. CDs. There's something in there actually, and there's a behind it. There's a thing. There's a lyric sheet,
Lyric.
and then George in the back. That's from the Faith cover. You've probably seen that, and there's a lyric sheet. So yeah, this did some major business on CD too. And this one, I think this is the first. This is from Beverly Hills Cop 2, I believe.
Yes.
I Want Your Sex, the new smash hit. Nearly 20 minutes of music unavailable on any album. This had, I'm sure, a number of remixes on it.
It does.
Because this song is interesting. It starts out almost like a Prince type of thing, like it's an electro song. Then it gets into this funky horn thing in the end. It's a really... I Want Your Sex is one of George's most amazing songs. But I can't remember what his first name is pronounced, but I know his actual last name is Paniatu. He was Greek. But he changed it to George Michael, obviously, for recognition. But
yes, this has the 13-minute and 13-second version of I Want Your Sex.
and if I recall, on the album, that song's already 8 minutes, isn't it?
Yes.
Then this is even
There's
longer.
actually 3 parts to it.
Yeah, I gotta give George Michael. This is when they were making 3 and 4 minute pop singles. He was doing these 13-minute remixes and these 8-minute album tracks he had to separate. So he was really going, definitely a different way in the 80s than a lot of people at that time were, taking risks and getting hits with it. So I really appreciate what he did with this.
And he broke the mix into 3 different parts. The first one he called Blessed. The second one he called Brass and Love. And the third one he called A Last Request.
Yeah, I'm George Michael for you.
And then the B-side was Hard Day.
And of course there's Monkey. I think this may have been with a third single, I'm not sure. Or was it Father Figure? I can't remember which. This might have been later, I don't know.
And this does have special mixes on it as well.
Didn't you say this is one of your favorite songs from the album?
Yes.
Mine too. I love I Want Your Sex, but that and Monkey are a close one for me on that record.
And once again, I do prefer the version that's on the 12-inch to the album version.
Well, that's the one good thing about 12-inch mixes, in those days. They could really extend certain parts out, add different things. George Michael and Prince was a master of it. Prince was a master of the 12-inchers, and George Michael was also another guy who was good with them. Now, let's go to the next one.
The next one is a special one.
Yep, a little surprise I didn't want to tell you about till we got to it.
This is one that I actually heard an MP3 online of Jive Talking.
And you tried to see if I could guess who it was, wasn't it?
I'm like, this voice just, it just snagged at me. I knew this voice. And I kept listening and listening. And I finally figured out that it was actually George Michael singing on the track.
And this is a group called Boogie Box High. I believe it was formed around a member of the Style Council, Mick Talbot, wasn't it?
Yes.
And they had different members, and George Michael did some work with them, and Jive Talking here was one of the songs.
And this was one of the ones that was hard to get. I actually ended up having to order this on eBay because it wasn't released here in the United States. It's an import. And it has multiple versions of Jive Talking on it.
And there's a music video that goes with this, too, that's kind of animation. So, if you go on YouTube, you should check it out. I mean...
And they do have a couple more where George is doing the vocals.
Yeah, I mean, projects like Boogie Box High are things that really make these artists, shine, because sometimes they have record company castles, but they can go over to other places and do work with other artists while they're in the middle of that. And this was, I think, right between Wham and Faith, right? Like, right between that?
I believe so.
Or was it after Faith? I can't remember.
Not dated.
I think was it 88 or 89? I think it was just maybe between Faith and Listen Without Prejudice. And Listen Without Prejudice, by the way, his 1990 album, just got reissued. I wasn't too pleased with the content, but the reissue of that album, that was the last album originally that was available on vinyl for him. He had a long record company battle and didn't release anything until the mid-90s. I don't know if his older album came out or anything, but, this is original George Michael vinyl.
That was from 87.
That was from 87. So that was right around Faith. So maybe it might have been between Wham and Faith, like I said. But there we have some 12-inchers and George Michael and Wham. And, it's a good thing we did this, because George Michael and Wham, now that I think about it, they're all kind of a continuum, Would you say kind of?
Yes.
Because, George Michael, I mean, Andrew Ridgeley, on that album, I'm pretty sure a lot of the guitar came from him. But George Michael could pretty much do all that stuff too, so he probably figured, yeah, Andrew can go off and do his thing, but I can do all that stuff and then some. So, a lot of times, and this kind of bugs me, an artist will be part of a band or a duo, and then you'll have somebody whispering in your ear, well, you can do so much more without them or without him. And they'll say, well, it makes me. Nobody, I think, told George Michael that. I think he knew he could do it on his own, and he wanted to encourage Andrew to do it on his own, too. Now, Andrew didn't quite pan out, but, you know, just in those royalties from Careless Whisper alone, that's some good living right there. That's a major thing. So, you know, R.I.P. George Michael. I miss your music, your generosity, and sorry your business with hard living got to him. And, you know, this is his legacy. So until that time, enjoy your music and peace.
Peace.
To the living and the passed away. See you next time.